thanks so much for listening to Fire Breathing Rob. If you're listening to us for the first time, please like, subscribe, share this interview. It's with an amazing man who's got a lot going on right now. We're going to dabble into his story in just a minute. This is Dave Combs, and he actually did a really impressive thing, and it's kind of a tragic story, but it's going to go into a better story, and I'm going to let him explain this. All right, Dave, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time today.
Rob, it's a pleasure to be here. I was really excited. Couldn't wait for this to happen today. That's great.
Can you first tell people a little bit about you and also get into your story with Rachel's song and obviously the pandemic, how it inspired that?
Well, my name is Dave Combs, and I was born and raised in East Tennessee, up in the mountains of Tennessee. Love those mountains. And I grew up in a musical family. My mother and father both played music instruments. My mother played piano. She took lessons as a girl, and my father learned to play by ear. He mostly just played what he heard in his head and just made it up as he went. And so my grandmother Combs, she played the old pump organ. For those of your audience that may know about that, it's an organ that was just back before electricity. You pump the air through the organ and it made music. Well, my grandma could play that pump organ, and she also played something that's well known around these parts called an auto harp. I think Maybelle Carter and Johnny Cash's mother-in-law and those folks played the auto harp. And so my grandma could play the auto harp and sing. So I grew up around music all my life. And then I went to work at Western Electric as a computer programmer, and I'd had a great career at that for 22 and a half years. But in December of 1980, a tragic thing happened. My father was killed in a car wreck 3 days before Christmas. Wow. And so that was my first taste of real tragedy and grief in my family. And so the loss of him, I think, probably triggered some emotions in me, because always, even before then, when I wanted to relax and take my mind somewhere else to relax, I would sit down at the piano and just play something, turn on the radio, play along with the radio, whatever. Me and the piano would have a conversation and just have a relaxing relationship. So I think that tragedy in my life probably brought a bunch of emotions out to the forefront in me. And in January, following that my father's death, I sat down at my piano, and it was an old, really old piano. It was a Kanabe made in Baltimore, Maryland in 1875. I found out from the serial number. 100 years old, over 100 years old. Well, it wouldn't hold its tune very well. And so I've got a pretty good ear, so I can tune it pretty close with, I get out my tuning hammer and I tuned my piano where it sounded good. And always after I tune my piano, I love to just play something pretty. You know, when the piano is freshly tuned, there's nothing prettier than a freshly tuned piano playing something. So I sat down at the piano and I started playing. And I played the first notes of this song that was coming to me as I played it. And I played a verse, and then I played a chorus, and then I played another verse and chorus and whatever. And I played the whole song all the way through. And I really never thought about it as being writing a song. I sat down and I played this song that I felt like had been there for millions of years, but I was just the fortunate one, was the first one to play it. Right. So I don't know how religious you are, but I do believe that song was a gift to me from God Almighty. And then my goal was, after I realized that I had been given a song, my mission was to get that song out into the world, let other people hear it. Right. And so a couple of years later, some friends of ours had a little baby girl. Now, at this point, before that, it didn't have a name. Linda and my wife and I, we tried to give it a name. Nothing we ever came up. You know, when you're trying to name something, it's, this doesn't fit. It doesn't. No, not that one. So we never came up with a name. Sure. And then 2 years later, some friends of ours had a little baby girl, and they asked me and Linda to be her godparents. Well, of course, we accepted. And at the christening service, Linda and I were sitting there, and up at the front of the church was this beautiful black baby grand piano. And so I said, Linda, do you think it would be all right if I played this little song? And so after the formal ceremony was over of the christening, I went up to the family and I said, would it be okay if I played a special song for little Rachel on the piano? Oh, sure. So everybody sat back down. I went over to the piano and I sat down and I played this song.
Yeah.
And after a while, I hear this sniff, sniff, and, and tears running down people's cheeks. It was really an emotional experience, and I was feeling it too. I could see some tears running down my cheeks. So when the song finally, when I finished playing it, and the last notes of the song were fading away, you know how you can hear a piano note, will fade for a long time. Right. Before it totally faded away, I looked up and I said, from now on, this song will be called Rachel's Song in her honor. Well, the name fit like a glove and it was perfect. And everybody thought it was just wonderful. So then 3 years later, march forward 3 years later, I was on a business trip to Nashville, Tennessee. I was still working for AT&T Western Electric at the time. And I was doing business in Nashville during the week. And Linda said, why don't you go to one of those studios in Nashville and get a demo recording made of Rachel's song? So we'd have it and we could give her a copy and that kind of thing. In Nashville, there's hundreds of studios. If you've ever been to Nashville, they don't call it Music City, USA for nothing. And so one evening after work, I went driving down to the downtown part of Nashville in the Music Square area. Sure enough, the studios all over the place, but this is back time, in 1986 in the South, as we say, they roll up the sidewalks at 5:30. Everybody goes home usually. Well, I couldn't find one that looked like it was open. And then I spotted one. It was at a building that looked like a log cabin or a barn, and it had a mock-up of a water wheel out front, and the title of the sign said, The Music Mill. And I thought, well, okay. There was a car in the parking lot. I pulled in. I looked through the door there. There was a man sitting at a desk, and I knocked on the door, and he came to the door and said, "Oh, I'm George Clinton. Can I help you?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm Dave Combs, and I'm looking for a studio." And he said, "Well, come on in. You found one." And so I went in, and make a long story short, he gave me a really great tour of the place. My first experience, even walking into a studio, I was blown away. And I said, "George, I've got this song I've written, and I'd love to have a demo made of it. Do you know a good piano player that could play it for me?" And he thought of saying, "Yeah, I know just the right person." He said, his name's Gary Prim. Let me go and get his phone number for you. He went over to his Rolodex. Now, this is back before iPhones and all this contact stuff. There's a physical Rolodex. He rolled it around and says, "Oh, here it is." So he wrote down Gary's phone number for me and said, "Give Gary a call. He'll probably do it for you." And so I went back to the hotel that night. I was excited. Oh boy, I found the right person. So I called Gary and got his answering machine. And I said, "Gary, call me back. George Clinton recommended you," and so forth. And about 30 minutes, phone rings, and he said, "Hi, this is Gary. Can I help you?" And I told him what I needed. And I said, "Can you do that?" "Oh, sure. I'd be happy to do that." And so we arranged. He said, "Just send me a lead sheet of it and a recording of you playing it so I know what it sounds like." And I said, "Well, what's a lead sheet?" Now, remember, I had never had anything recorded. Right. I didn't know anything about Nashville music stuff. And I said, "What's a lead sheet?" And he says, "Well, it's the melody and the chords written down." Oh, I said, "I got that." So I did have a sheet of the melody and the chords of Rachel's song. I'll do it. So a couple of weeks later, was back in Nashville, and Gary had already arranged to meet me at a studio. I walk into this studio. Now, I'm sure, Rob, that you've been in a recording studio. I hope you've had the privilege of being there.
I have not.
Oh man, you got to do this. If you know some musicians, beg them to let you come to one of their recording sessions. It is like coming to the birth of a baby. It is unbelievably a creative experience. Sure. So here I am, and never been hardly in a studio. Here comes Gary in with his Yamaha DX7 synthesizer under his arm, his keyboard. And we set up and shop in this little tiny recording studio. And Gary says, and there's a little Yamaha baby grand piano in the studio. And so he sits down, and me and the engineer, we're back in the control room while Gary's out where the piano is. And so Gary starts, feeling around with the piano, whatever. And he says, "Okay, I think I'm ready. Let's roll." So the engineer turned on the tape recorder, and Gary starts playing. Well, I was mesmerized. I was blown away. I mean, you can imagine hearing your own music played by some professional that makes it sound like $1 million. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So he plays it through and gets it the piano part recorded. And I thought, wow, that's great. I was impressed. I thought, well, that's it. He said, nope, I'm not done yet. He said, I'm going to add some more recording to it. I'm going to put some electric piano. I'm going to put some strings, high strings and low strings. And I think I might even add some horns in here, a little place. So, and they do what they call multi-tracking. He puts on his headphones and hears himself playing the piano, and he sits at the keyboard and plays the other part, you know, as he's listening to himself on the piano. So they lay down some strings, and he lays down some electric piano. And in about 30, 45 minutes, Gary's all done. And so we come back in the studio, and the engineer mixes it all together, and we play it. And I'm telling you, I was speechless. I could not believe my ears. I said, oh, wow, this is amazing. And so paid Gary, and then the engineer mixed me up my stereo track to take home with me, maybe some cassette tapes. And I left the studio, jumped in my rental car that I had already rented with a cassette player in it. Now, today you can't even get a car with a CD player in it, let alone a cassette. In fact, a lot of people ask you, cassette player, what's that? You know.
Hey, I know what cassettes are very well. Very well.
So anyway, I popped my cassette player in that rental car, and I sat there in the park. I hadn't even left the parking lot yet. I listened to it again. Oh man, this is it. And then I said, I got to get back to the hotel so I can call and tell Linda about this. Now, this is before cell phones. I had no way of getting a hold of anybody except on the phone in the room in the hotel. So I jump in my rental car and I play in this, pop the cassette in there, rewind it, play it again. And I'm riding down the interstate around Nashville, and I pop it and play it again. I'm riding and riding. And I look up and I said, I think I have missed my exit. If you ever drive to Nashville, you'll know what I mean. But there are interstates that cross interstates that cross interstates. And if you're in the left lane, you need to be in the right. You're going someplace else. So turns out I was so into listening to my song, I think I had circled Nashville at least 2 times, because I saw the same billboards 2 or 3 times. And I thought, I got to pay attention to where I'm going here. I'll never get home. So I finally made it to the hotel, and I called Linda. I was so excited, and I was frustrated because I had no way to play it for her. I said, Linda, you just won't believe your ears when you hear this song. And I know she was as frustrated as I was not being able to hear it. And I was so excited. You know what I did? I said, I got to play this for somebody. I got back in my rental car, and I drove to a shopping center and went to a Circuit City. Some of you will remember Circuit stores. Well, I knew they had stereo equipment. And you know what I did? I took my cassette in there. Yep, I did it, Rob. I said, I got me a sales guy, and I said, can you play this? Show me what this would sound like on a really good sound system. And he said, oh, yeah. I mean, he popped it. And I said, all right, turn it up, turn it up. So he turned it up. And what happened was all the customers in the store going, whoa, what is that song you're playing there, man? And so I knew that it really grabbed everybody's attention. So anyway, that's how it got recorded, Rob. And I think I need to stop with this part of the story and let you pick up from there and ask me something else.
Can you talk about the book in general? And, you know, it's hard for anybody to write a book about anything. So as a person that's, you know, hasn't wrote tons of books, first of all, how did you start that process to write the book in general?
Well, that was very hard, because I do have, as you can imagine, it was 40 years ago when I first wrote Rachel's song. Over 40 years, a lot of things can happen, and you have lots of stories. You know, there's no straight line from there to now. It was a lot of zigs and zags with successes and failures and all that kind of thing. And so I have lots of stories, not just about the music, but about the business of music. You know, I made a good living I quit my job at AT&T in 1992 and worked full time doing nothing but my music for 10 years. But I didn't get there instantly. How did I do that? So it's the stories of how I took my one song, how I wrote more, how I got it recorded, how I got it on the radio, how I got the radio play proliferated all over the country. Where did I sell my music? No, it wasn't through record stores. Back then we used to have Record Bar, and I forget who the others were, but it was record stores is what they were called. And they wouldn't have anything to do with me. And so
Wow.
I had to figure out how to sell my music without the standard channels. You know, there wasn't a big Best Buy that had the CD section, you know, a gazillion CDs. Back then, that didn't exist. So I basically found a way to get my music played and heard. Linda and I sat down one time, and you know how when you come out with a new product or anything, you figure out how do people want to buy this? How do they react to your product?
Mm-hmm.
And for the music, Linda and I decided that it has to be heard, and it usually needs to be heard in the right environment. You don't want it to be heard in a big, noisy, crazy place where you're not even paying attention to the music. You want it to walk into a quiet place, and all of a sudden you're surrounded by this beautiful music. That's the environment you want. Well, lo and behold, back in the 80s, a friend of mine that I worked with at AT&T had a friend who owned a gift shop in Old Town Alexandria. It was called America. This gift shop sold Americana kind of stuff, patriotic stuff. And she played music on her CD player in her shop. And she, of course, played patriotic stuff, John Philip Sousa and all the patriotic music. Well, my friend gave the shop owner one of my CDs of Rachel's song. And so she plopped the CD of Rachel's song in her CD changer of about 4 or 5 CDs. And every time Rachel's song came on in her shop, what a contrast to the John Philip Sousa, the national anthem or whatever is playing. And here comes my soothing, relaxing piano music. She said that everybody in the shop stopped and came over to the counter and says, "Jane, what's that music you're playing? Do you have it for sale?" Well, she didn't, because it was just a gift to her. She was just playing it. So I get a call from Jane. She says, "Dave, I'm Jane, and I own this gift shop called America. And would you sell me some CDs to sell to my customers? Everybody wants to buy this." So I said, "Sure." So I boxed up a bunch of them and took them down. I was working in Maryland at the time. So we got in the car and went down there one evening and took Jane a box of CDs. And I thought, wow, this is going to be interesting, because I've never done this before. And so about a week, Jane calls and she says, "Dave, those are all gone. I need some more." So I box up some more, take them down there. Well, this became a weekly occurrence for my wife, Linda, and I to jump in the car in the evening, go down to Old Town Alexandria, go out to a nice dinner, and take Jane her box of CDs. Well, that little shop, Old Town Alexandria, sold a ton of my CDs. And then I started looking at the business model. And I got an MBA, and I'm a business person, and I understand, replication and, profit and all that kind of thing. So I looked at the model of my shop. I said, all right, I've sold at wholesale X number of CDs to her, and she has sold all those, and my profit's this. She's made a bunch of money off of it. And so I thought, okay, now what if you reckon there's another gift shop in the whole country somewhere that would do the same thing? And I thought, surely there's at least, maybe 5 or 10. So I made me a spreadsheet. This is before Excel, but we still did have old spreadsheets since I was a computer person. And I made me a column that said, okay, let's take Jane's numbers times 10. Oh, okay. Well, instead of making this much, you hear the advertisements these days for this 10X stuff. Well, I 10X to my CDs. I thought, wow, well, now let's see. What if I had one gift shop in every state? Just one. 50 states. That's all I need, right? So instead of 10, let's go over to a column and call 50. Well, okay, well, that's looking a lot better. If I had maybe 5 gift shops in every state, that's 250 gift shops. That's more than I make at AT&T. Let's see here. So the entrepreneurial juices started flowing, and I've got to replicate this thing. This business model of a sale in a gift shop is working. So sure enough, on weekends, Linda and I, we went around to all the tourist places. Like in that time, we were at Ellicott City and Occoquan. I forget where some of the others were, but we would go out and just walk up and down these tourist towns and pop into a little gift shop. And I'd pop in there and I'd listen. I don't hear any music, and I just go out and leave. If I go in there and they're playing music, okay. I go in and I ask the shop owner, I'd say, okay, and I'd give them a cassette tape of Rachel's song. I say, why don't you play this on your sound system in your shop and see what happens? I'd love to have you carry my music for sale in your shop. Oh, okay, well, I'll play it. Well, I get back home, I left them my phone number. My phone would have a message on it. This is so-and-so from Occoquan. I'd like to have some of your cassette tapes or CDs. So we gradually built up my gift shops that wanted to play and sell. Well, that method of selling music became known as the play and sell market. In fact, me and one fellow on the West Coast and another person were the ones that really invented that sales channel. Well, now you can't go in any music store anywhere where there's not music playing and cassette tapes or CDs for sale at the counter or some on a display someplace. So that was the play and sell market that basically I helped invent, and it worked so well that I ended up with over 1,000 gift shops in the whole country selling and playing my music. 1,000.
Yeah.
That was big time.
Now, you helped a lot of these people that were stressed out, that were anxious, that were depressed in these nursing homes. Can you really go into that story and talk about how you really helped a lot of these people get through this tough time where they didn't have those visitors, didn't even have nurses sometimes coming in and seeing them. They were alone.
Yeah, you're right. My mother lived in an assisted living facility right near our home here for the last 2.5 years of her life. So every day I visited her at the nursing or at the assisted living place, and I got to know the staff and the activities directors, all the other quote neighbors of hers, the residents that lived there. And I came firsthand to appreciate how much socialization and music was to these people. So when I saw those news stories about, I guess it was, what was it, maybe March, somewhere in March of 2020, when they came out with all these stories about these nursing home people that their family couldn't come in and see them anymore, and the assisted living, their family could only see them through the window or even if that close. And that just broke my heart because I knew how much these people depended upon that socialization. And, they're fragile enough as it is. And so the empathy was just on steroids because I could just sense the stress and the frustration of these people. And I said, I got to do something. And I knew from my experience at where my mom lived, because I would go out there and I'd play the piano for those folks. And I know how much they loved the music and they loved Rachel's song, and they would beg me to come and play more all the time. And so I said, I'm going to do something. And so I'm also a photographer. So I took my music and my photography and I made YouTube videos, music videos with my music playing in the background and beautiful photography, mountain scenery, flowers, ocean, sunrises, sunset, all those pretty pictures. Something that would be, when you look at it, your mind just kind of, like your background there, your mind just goes right to the beach and says, oh man, I'd love to be sitting under that palm tree out there. And so I made these videos, and I decided, well, I want these people to be able to play it. And I know how busy the staff is. They don't need to be going push and start on something all the time. Every time something stops, go start it all over again. So I said, I'm going to make a YouTube video that's 7 hours long. So I took a whole album with my photography and my music, put it on there, and I repeated it like 6, 7 times. You can go on my YouTube channel, Combs Music. You'll find these long playing videos. You just put it on in the background, it'll play for 7 hours. And so some of these places, had big screens that they could pipe it through their TV system in the facility or whatever, or these people could call it up on their iPads or their computers and just be relaxed and soothed by the music. And I personally called about 400, I'm sorry, not 200 and some assisted living facilities in North Carolina alone, and spoke personally with the activities director, who is the person that is in charge. I call him the person that's in charge of keeping everybody happy. But they were the ones that would make sure that their residents saw this video. And they were all so appreciative. I'd send them the link by email of, here's how you get to my YouTube channel and here's how you play it. And they all were so appreciative. And then I said, well, I got to get it around the country. And I found out, again, thinking about my entrepreneurial side of things, I analyzed, you got to be a better way to do something. And I said, there are associations. I used to live in Alexandria, Virginia, and that is the capital of the world for associations. There's an association for everything. And so sure enough, there's an association of assisted living facilities, association for nursing homes, long-term care association. And these people, they have mailing lists of all of these facilities in their area. Turns out every state has an association for assisted living and healthcare. And there are national associations. I called all 67 of those associations, and it took me several days to do this, and got them to take my links to my YouTube and put it in their newsletters and send it out to their membership. So I ended up getting my music links sent to all 44,000 long-term care facilities in the entire country. And so that was how I got that's what I did to help through the pandemic. And I still hear from some of those people that appreciate being able to play and enjoy and relax to my music. And I felt really blessed to be able to do that. And it's still a blessing.
So Dave, how many associations or assisted living centers took you up on this? Do you know offhand?
I have no way of knowing exactly, but I've just from the letters and emails I got back, it's got to be in the thousands.
Okay,
hundreds
wow.
or thousands, because I heard emails back from like say, I don't know, around 100 of them. And these people are so busy, they don't have time to write emails to anybody hardly. So, but I'm confident that it got played all over the whole country.
Right. Well, that would be great, because like it is, those people in general needed that kind of inspiration and that kind of relaxation, because there was nobody around them, like you said. So I appreciate you did that. As we go to the end of the interview, Dave, I want to talk about the book. Now, when is the book out, and how can people get the book? Is it already on Amazon, or?
Yeah, it's the book is Touched by the Music, and it is on Amazon live. It went live on Amazon October the 11th, and it's available in all three formats. You can get a paperback like I'm holding here, and it's also available as a Kindle ebook. And if you like if you want to listen to me talk, I narrated my entire book. It's about an 8-hour narration. You can get an Audible audio book of my book. It's on Audible on Amazon. And so it took me a long time to record it, but you can listen to me read my book. So if you're from North Carolina or Tennessee and you're homesick for a little Southern accent, just buy the Audible book and listen to me talk for a while.
Obviously, if people want to do you have any CDs? Where can they get that? I assume your website.
Well, you can go to my website, and you'll see on my website all of 15 of my CD albums. And I also have, for the piano players of your audience, I have 11 piano music books that are also available. And you can go on Amazon.com and get my CDs and the hard printed music books, or you can call Combs Music and get them there as well. And then for those that like to download music instantly on Sheet Music Plus, I have all of my sheet music on Sheet Music Plus that you can just pay for and download it right now. So it's available all over the world. And my book is available also, not just on Amazon, but it's anywhere books are sold. You can go to Barnes & Noble, Target, any place, and they can get the book as well. So it's available everywhere.
Dave Combs, I really appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure. I look forward to doing this again down the road, because I really appreciate, like I said, your knowledge about music and really, like I said, what you've done.
I would love to do that, Rob. We can delve into the business side of the music a little deeper, or however you want to go. I'd look forward to doing that. That'd be great.
All right. Sounds like a plan. Thanks so much, Dave.
Thank you, Rob.